Here we are on iteration 3 of our 12-string Iterative Music Project. This time, we're pulling sounds from a giant list of onomatopoeia, all sourced from the iteration 2 reels. Let's take a listen to them. Again, very impressive variety, and at this point, I'm basically unable to hear the origin in many of them. We've come a long way. Let's patch up around these. A lot of them have a rumble to the low end, which I'd love to be able to accentuate or remove at will. So that's just asking to be put through a high-pass filter. Let's do so with QPAS. We can have them step through automatically by patching the end of splice gate to the shift input. We can start to recognize a pattern. But if we start to modulate slide at an independent rate, then it breaks up the pattern. The shortest splices still sort of poke through, which keeps something of that pattern recognition going. If we turn gene size far enough up, it'll make it get stuck eventually. Because the end of splice gate starts going fast enough that it's no longer discrete triggers, and so the shift input stops receiving them. So we'll turn gene size just barely down from that point, and then modulate it in the negative direction at a different rate from the slide modulation. There's one splice that kind of always sticks through differently. I might have to remove that one. Sorry, Tinkle. If we don't really want any pattern at all, we could take the end of splice gate, mult it out to the Wogglebug clock input, and then attenuate the stepped random CV and patch that to organize. But what if we also utilize the CV output from Morphogene? It's an envelope follower for the sound. We'll use that to influence the Wogglebug. This will work best using the Woggle CV instead of stepped random. We turn up the woggle time, and now this becomes a little bit of a self-regulating system while still being mostly a random selection. A thing to note is that in most circumstances, I tend to use organize option 1 to make organize change always happen immediately, but in this case I found option 0 works better to wrangle in the many sudden and constant changes made by this fluctuating Wogglebug voltage. May as well modulate some QPOS parameters as well. We'll use the two sides of Spectrophone and their own random voltage generators. Okay. Now, Why stop there? Why stop anywhere? Let's add in a little timed percussion sequence. We'll mult the end of splice gate once more to clock the y-axis of René, and we'll take the Y gate output to strike on the DXG and patch the QPOS through the DXG's aux inputs. We'll mix the side B sine and noise outputs in the X-pan on a crossfade channel, and then we'll also attenuate Wogglebug's stepped random and mult that output to both the volt per octave input on the side and also the crossfade input on the X-pan. This means lower notes will have more sine wave and higher notes will have more noise. And we'll patch the result through the DXG. May as well also modulate the high-pass filter on that noise. That's on the focus control in noise mode with the YCV output. Now dropping gene size or morph down further will give us a tendency toward more stopping points and negative space and such. Or if we turn them farther up, it's more dense. One thing that I also like to do when I'm creating a continuous patch like this is remove the SD card from the morphogene. That ensures the original file will remain intact. But in the meantime, it'll keep playing as it has been. And then start destroying it. There's a patch example in the original Phonogene manual called Regenerative Record. It concludes with the line, "Listen to the mess you've made." And that's what we're gonna do. Let's patch the Wogglebug burst gate output to the record input on morphogene. Now, a cool thing about this is that if the splice changes during recording, it'll continue recording into whatever splice it was on when the recording started. So it's really only wrecking one splice at a time, even if we're recording constantly. But we're gonna hear it slowly degenerating or regenerating or cross-generating. This is the iterative endgame. But of course, it's not really the end, it's just another potential beginning. Let's listen for a bit and see what happens. thing I should probably also note is that the further we get from original vari-speed, the more drastic each new change will be. And therefore the faster the generations. If we have too much rumble or too much shrill, we can turn it up or down accordingly to remedy that over time. So yes, this is one iterative endgame, because by the time this reel becomes totally feedback or totally silence, we will have retained basically nothing recognizable from the original reel. But we can always reload the reel, or any of the previous reels, or any other reel, or make a new reel and branch off in a new direction. While this patch let us spin off a sort of endless tape music composition with eventual disintegration, I also want to explore this Onomatopoeia Reel further and see if we can do something more purposeful and composed with it. Perhaps we'll dive back into the composing with tape recorders book, or explore ideas from Daphne Oram or Pierre Schaeffer. By the way, there are still plenty of sound signatures left in the list. If you would like to contribute, we can continue expanding this reel, which is currently only about half the maximum length. Even if you already put in some sounds, feel free to throw in a couple more, and let's keep it expanding. For anyone who missed it before, let's replay the instructions from last time really quick. I've created a spreadsheet, which you can access in the description. It has a row for each of the, by my count, 77 words that Dwyer used to express sound types. If you have time, then, using iteration 2 and its descriptors as your material, see if you can make at least one and as many as 3 of these types of sounds. Use any method you want, but consider how the person who made the previous iteration thought of their sound and how they considered its potential musical use. For these, we're going to have to limit the length even further. I'd say 5 seconds tops, but truly think about how long it really needs to be. I'd say the majority of these categories can fit in 1 to 2 seconds. Once you've made your sounds, please send them, as before, to walker@makenoisemusic.com. Please send them in WAV format with the sound name in the title, such as twang, blast, or what have you, as listed in the column there. And also your artist's name and any links to your work. Once you've sent the file, come back to this spreadsheet and put an X in the second column next to the sound type that you made. Now, if you start working on a sound and then somebody else puts an X before you submit it, don't worry about it. It's fine. We can have more than one type, or more than one of the same type of sound. But this should help us to get plenty of variety over time. If you have music concrete composition ideas for how you'd use this iteration 3 reel, drop them in the comments. We can collaborate not just on sounds, but on ideas. Thanks for watching and happy patching. Also, hopefully I'll see some of you at Machina Bristronica at the end of September. Have a great week.
you